What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Craving Wild podcast episode. This is episode 53. If you made it through our previous episode, which was yesterday, yes, we're doing back-to-back episodes for you guys. We're going to start 2024 off with a bang, and then we're going to go back to our normal Tuesdays, and then just kind of sporadic after hours. But if you did make it through the last After Hours 6, you are a special human being, and we thank you. We thank you a lot. That was a long one. It was a 4-hour podcast. I don't know if we're going to do any more that are 4 hours and keep them 4 hours, but it was my stomach never hurt so bad in an episode, recording an episode. It was I was laughing pretty much from the point, and I was laughing editing it afterwards. It was hilarious. But thank you guys for listening to that one. Happy New Year. Getting into this week's episode to start off 2024 with a bang, we are having on our good buddy Wes Brobeck. He's from down in the volunteer state, and he's chasing this thing called perfection in archery. You can't do it, but in the process of getting there, you can achieve excellence, hopefully. This podcast really takes you out of your comfort zone, which is something that you'll learn throughout this whole episode. This is 2 hours of like just nugget after nugget after nugget. It's a lot of mental stuff. If you are an individual who is looking to, up your archery game, up your scores in target archery, stop missing animals, be more lethal, be more ethical with your bow, this is absolutely the episode to listen to. My brain zoned out multiple times just listening to him, thinking about flashing back to things that I do and how I'm going to change that, and then coming back to realizing that I'm in the middle of a podcast and I have to say stuff, because that's kind of how these things work, right? So I'm going to listen to this one again right after this. Just Wes is he's very, very good at relaying information, and he's an absolute wealth of knowledge, and he is absolutely no slouch when it comes to shooting a bow. This isn't some random guy, I said this in the episode, this is not some random guy who just watched some YouTube videos, turned around and regurgitated information. This is years and years and years and years of shooting at an extremely high level, then getting professionally trained through the government to shoot weapons. With that being said, he's, he went out and he served the country, so thank you for that, Wes. If there's anybody that we've had on these episodes that I'm going to say you absolutely need to keep an eye on, it is this guy. Wes, he's focused, he has a goal, and we're looking forward to seeing him reach those goals. I don't want to blabber too much. It's just me in the studio, as you can tell. It's been quiet. Did limit out on squirrels today, so that was a lot of fun. Just got done cleaning them up. Got them soaking in water right now for a couple hours, and we're going to put them in the freezer. Definitely going to have some recipes coming through. That's why we're going so hard on the squirrels. Antonio got a couple. Eddie's slacking in the squirrel realm, but I'm sure he's going to hammer down in the trapping world here shortly. Other than that, once again, things are coming down the line. Just stay with us. It takes money to do things. It takes time to do things. And we, just like you guys, we all have normal jobs. And it's difficult to, play that balance, keep that balance, and stay motivated and look at that motivation. You know what? We're just going to get into the episode because you are going to be so motivated to shoot your bow the best you have ever shot it after this episode that I can't let you guys wait any longer. That's just disrespectful from me. So we're going to get you guys right into episode 53 with Wes Brobeck. Hope you guys enjoy.
He sends us a text message.
System, that's for sure.
He sends us a text message saying, "Hey guys, the cold plunge is cold. It works." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit."
Yeah, no kidding.
So I do like, I stood in it for I don't know, 15, 20 seconds before I dunked my body down. And the feeling afterwards is amazing. Like, my legs felt great.
Yes.
The problem is as soon as I got down, I like flashed in time to these guys having to do a Craving Wild episode because I died in my driveway in a horse trough filled with water.
Yes, hey, true story. Because I've done hot cold therapy for years. We had at my old unit in the military, we had 2 of them that were like real high speed. Like the cold plunge looked like a hot tub, like it was filtered. The water was chilled to a certain temperature. It was inside, always clean. So I've been doing it for a while. However, I got one of these cheapies from Tractor Supply because I can't afford that stuff. And I told my wife, hey, come outside. I'm going to get in this thing and film me. And she said, okay. And when it was done, she said, I got to be honest with you. I thought I was just filming your death just now. Like I thought you were dying in that thing and I was filming your death. So I get it. It ain't fun.
I think we should do some sort of challenge, and the loser from us 3 has to get in it. Because I know you guys won't get in it.
I've been in cold tubs.
Oh, you have?
Football, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for football. That makes sense.
I don't prefer them, but they do feel nice.
Don't prefer them.
Yeah, it's super beneficial, but the whole point of it is, I mean, you've already experienced the why. Just your short little time there. You know, you were hesitant on even doing it. And you're like, okay, after maybe a week, month, I don't know, of talking about it in your own head, you're like, okay, let's give this a shot. Then you finally, get past that wall and you put water in it. And you're like, why? I'm not getting in this thing. This is dumb. But you do it anyway. So that's the second wall you break through, right? You actually stood in it, but you wouldn't sit in it for quite a while. You just stood there debating.
It felt like 27 minutes, but it was probably only like 16 seconds.
Right. But in that moment, your brain loses track of time. Like you said, it was almost an out-of-body experience. You're like, you went somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
But you break through that wall and you finally sit down, and that's where your brain won. You said, nah, I'm done. I'm out of here. This is crazy, right? But those 3 walls that you went past is basically the definition of being mentally tough. That's how you train your mind.
That's right. Three quarters of the way there, boys.
I'm pretty sure he just slipped and fell inside. I don't think he went inside, to tell you the truth.
It's funny you say that because I got it. Like you just said, I got it. I was like, all right, I spent $120 on this tub. Now I have to do it, right? So we're that one step closer. I filled it up with water. I let the Mother Nature get it colder up here because we have winters where we're at. Well, I guess it gets pretty cold by you too, right?
Yeah, not to my standard. The mountains of Afghanistan in February, that's cold. That's why people look at me weird when I'm wearing shorts and it's 40 degrees. I'm like, boys, this ain't cold.
How cold does it get up there in the mountains of Afghanistan?
Negative.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Negative. When you are at the base of the mountains in a fob and it's 70 degrees and you get on a Black Hawk and fly up to the top, and when they let you out, there's snow knee deep. You're like, oh, I'm not dressed for this.
That obviously I can't attest to that, but when I went hunting in Colorado, it was like you said, I don't know, 60 degrees at my buddy's house at like 4,000, 5,000 feet. Then we got up to 13.1 or 12.9, something like that, and it was 29 degrees. It was like, ooh, and it was August 30th or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah, I lived in Colorado for a little bit, and I remember I went there, and it was like mid to late June. And when you come from Colorado from the east, as you're driving across the interstate, you kind of crest a ridge, and you get to see the Rockies for the first time, right? And again, it's mid-June. And I crest that ridge, and boom, there they are in all their glory, and they're snow-capped. I'm like, what am I doing? This is not okay.
Yeah, just your brain doesn't allow it doesn't compute that because you're hot and you're looking at snow.
Right, it's the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to the cold tub, I was literally sitting on my chair watching college football, I think, and I said, you know what, guys, or to myself,
pump yourself up.
Yeah, I did. I did. Like I played like one of those Instagram 30-second hype reels to myself, and I was like, we're doing it. And it was raining outside. It's dark outside. So I go out there, and not like the rain's hitting you. You're already cold. I'm like, fuck, like keep going.
Yeah.
Get into.
That's perfect.
Yeah, took the cover off. That was half the battle. stood in it, sat down, immediately got out.
Yeah.
Nope.
And that's okay, right? That's what you got to do, because that quick dunk was a wall that you broke through. So next time when you get all the way submerged, you'll be in there for a little bit, right? You'll have a new wall. But that's perfect, man. That's the whole point of it. Now, there's scientific evidence about this deal, right? And it goes way beyond my education. I just know that it's good for you. But the whole point for me is mental toughness. And that mental toughness, you can take that and apply it to all aspects of life, bro. Like everything from sport to relationships to defending yourself. You know what I mean? It goes to all kinds of aspects of your life. It's great.
I think it transitions very well into what we're here going to talk about today.
Absolutely.
D-loops.
Hey, you ever tried to tie one of them things in the dark? It's tough, man.
So we talked a little bit about, like, a couple weeks ago what we really wanted to talk about, and the first thing that came to mind is because we're more of a hunting podcast, a hunting related podcast. If we can try to discuss the benefits of getting in the cold plunge for 10 seconds version of target archery. Dip your toes in there, and I think you'd be amazed on what it would do for your shooting.
1,000%. Here's the deal. I mean, you know me enough, Dan, to know that my brain works a little bit different than everybody else's. Like, you made a post today that I saw that I believe in 100%, and you talked about the pursuit of perfection. If we want to do something at a high level, hunting, you have to prepare for that event. I mean, how many hunters do you know that love hunting, that just scout, hunt day in, day out? But how many times do they sit in a room with their eyes closed and use mental projection and actually put themselves in the situation where that buck of a lifetime walks up, and what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking about that will get your heart rate kind of pumped a little bit.
Gives you goosebumps.
And just that act can prepare you for that moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in a tree stand, we all think about, oh, the buck's going to come around the corner because we did our scouting, we did our preparation. We're anticipating the deer to come from there, but we shoot our bows a lot, so we might do it a little bit more, but I don't think that the normal guy thinks about the shot part of it. They just think the deer's going to come out and they're going to kill it. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
Right. They're like, there he is, and they just let her fly and hope for the best, right? Tournament archery, not only, I mean, people will think about tournament archery as making you a better archer, and if you're a better archer, you'll make a better shot on an animal, which is more humane, first of all, most importantly, right? But it's also ups your percentage of killing the animal, harvesting the animal, right? And all that's true. But what we kind of overlook sometimes is the mental aspect. I don't know what it is about that white line that's on the ground at an indoor archery tournament, but it's 20 yards. It's an easy shot. But when you step up and straddle that white line, your brain crawls out of your ear and runs away. Like, I don't know what it is, but the nerves, the anxiety, the negative self-talk, all that is great practice for when that buck of a lifetime walks up in front of you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I don't know how to express, like, everybody who hunts knows what I'm talking about. If you're new to it, this is something that you're gonna have to deal with, is that feeling when a deer comes out and you go to shoot it, that adrenaline dump.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's really no way to replicate. I've never jumped out of an airplane, but the only way I could replicate it that's useful is, like you just said, stepping on that white line at 20 yards. There's a bunch of people watching it. Believe it or not, I mean, Eddie, you've probably seen this in the bow shop and stuff. Like, people shoot significantly different when you're standing there watching.
It's amazing. So like people will literally say, "Can you leave the range?" So I can shoot. They don't. They just. It blows their mind. They literally implode and start shooting the left freaking corner of the paper, and it's not even.
Yeah.
You know. But then sometimes you have to. My wife, when she started shooting a little bit, and she actually wants to start shooting some more here, but I had somebody make a comment that I acted like a coach because I sat there and watched her, and she felt the pressure, but actually I think she shot better because I think her brain works that way, that she likes to, like you see with anything else she does, she likes pressure. She thrives with pressure. So I think, and everybody's different. Some people can't handle that. I mean, I like a little bit of pressure. I don't want too much, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a fact. There's a lot of people. It's to be determined about myself, but when I was a teenager in my younger years prior to the military, I actually performed better under pressure, just like you're speaking of. But it don't take much I don't know, external influence to bring that.
Yeah. Well, you probably have a lot of internal pressure to start with. You're probably really hard. I mean, same as me. I'm pretty good till a certain point. When you start putting too much pressure, it starts to
unravel quickly.
Yes, and because I already have so much pressure on myself,
Yeah, and that's where a shot process comes in to kind of bring your brain back to center, so you can focus on your, what you're supposed to be doing, and all these crazy thoughts about, holy moly, that's Levi Morgan standing over there. You know what I mean? Like, we all would think that, but that is probably the last thing you need to be thinking about right now. You got to shoot these X's. You're here to shoot X's, not, be a fanboy. But we all have these thoughts, and the mental toughness and the rehearsal and all this stuff helps you be able to bring your thoughts back and control your brain. That's what I tell everybody. You got to control your brain.
Absolutely. I got a question for you before we go any further. In we'll just say a Vegas 900 round, what's the hardest shot, the first 10 or the last 10?
That's tough. That's tough because the first 10 sets the stage. One of two things going to happen. You're shooting really well and your confidence is high and you're like, I'm good, right? Or you blow it right away and you're like, well, I might as well pack my stuff and go home now. I'm just shooting for fun anyway, and you're good.
Right.
But if you're on a roll, I'd say the last 3 arrows are brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal.
That pressure just building and building. And then you got that internal clock and everything like that, and you're just like, ugh.
Yeah, especially a tournament like Vegas, because you if you don't shoot clean, you're not making it to the finals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tim Gillingham said it well the other day, is you're not shooting 90 X's. You're issued 90 X's. You just can't give any back. They're yours as soon as you walk in. You just can't give any back.
That's a good way to put it.
It is.
Yeah. But it doesn't take much external force to give you pressure. I was talking to one of my guys at church today that just started shooting, and he's going to start traveling with us to ASA events in the summer. And he's a pretty good shot. I mean, he's no slouch, right? And he has about 5 McKenzie targets he's been practicing on, and he was shooting really good one day, and he told his wife, hey, come out here. I want to show you how well I'm shooting. And he said it was just his wife. He even told me, he's like, I've already won her over. Like, she married me. I don't need to impress her no more, right? Jokingly. But he said, for whatever reason, she was watching me shoot, and I almost missed the whole deer, he said. So it doesn't take much pressure to turn your brain into mush.
Yeah, no, that's...
Now you take that little bit of pressure and have a buck of a lifetime walkover, and you've already got buck fever, right? You're trying to control your breathing and all this stuff. Next thing you know, you kind of come to and you don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've asked people, when they take a shot on an animal, I'm like, where did your shot break? They're like, I have no idea. I don't even remember shooting. I mean, that's part of what makes us love hunting, is that adrenaline, the excitement. But that's probably not how our brain should operate in that moment.
So what do you think the best steps are to minimize that time frame of you not remembering? What can we do now? It's January, right? What can we do now to prepare ourselves for October, for when that big buck comes out, to stay mentally sharp throughout the whole process?
If you don't have a shot process, that's step one. By shot process, I mean step by step, talking yourself through what you do, right? It starts with your feet up, right? Okay, my feet are good. I got a good base. Stand up straight, grip, release, raise my bow arm, draw, make sure my front shoulder's low, right? You go through this whole thing. I don't want to make that a long part, but you go through the whole shot process. There's several steps there. Until that just becomes normal. I mean, do you think Michael Jordan, every time he shot a free throw, thought, okay, set your feet, bounce twice, backspin? No, he just did it because he did it so much, and the only way to get that process is through repetition. And I say that to say this: practice makes permanent. Practice does not make perfect, right? Your practice has to be perfect so you have perfect permanent, right? And that's where a lot of us fail. That's step one. Step two is, once you have that process beat in your brain, start making yourself uncomfortable on purpose. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, when a buck walks up and we're excited, we don't really consider that as uncomfortable, but that's exactly what it is. Mm-hmm. Because your adrenaline is so high that your brain can't even function properly. A good example of that in the regular world is the old ice plunge we were talking about. When you sat down and put your whole body underwater, and I asked you what 2 + 2 is in that moment, and you were unprepared for that question, you would have probably had a hard time questioning or answering it. You'd have had to really concentrate and get your ducks in a row to answer it. Something that simple, because your brain just turns to mush. But the more and more you make yourself uncomfortable, the more comfortable you are in those situations, and you can actually be in the present instead of just blanking.
Yeah, absolutely. I can really attest to that for all 3 bucks that we shot this year. Antonio started off this year and he had to shoot 2 arrows. Not very many people practice, not necessarily because he didn't miss the first arrow, but shooting an arrow and it doesn't go as planned and having to shoot another arrow.
Sure.
And
that's part of the process. Right? How many people, after they shoot the first arrow hunting, immediately knock another arrow? That's step one. As soon as you shoot, you knock another arrow, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't consider that.
Is that what you did?
Well, no, not necessarily. When I shoot a deer, I usually just shoot and see what happens, and then immediately go to another arrow.
Okay.
Because if he's there, I don't want to move, picking another arrow, because I don't have the quiver on my bow. I have it on my tree, so I gotta do movement to get the other arrow. But yeah, okay. It's immediately after. I gotta see what's going on before I.
Yeah, you look for clues.
Yeah, I assess the situation.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, I'm real good at making people uncomfortable, so I'm gonna say this is important. Yeah. I'm gonna say that if your normal is to shoot at a deer and you're like, let me see if I even got close.
Yeah.
We need to back up to practice, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if I put a target in front of you, because let's say 30-yard shot in the woods, at least around here in the mountains in the woods. That's a pretty long shot for a deer, for a whitetail. If I put a block target out at 30 yards and said, shoot that, and you would have zero thought that you're going to miss that block target. Wouldn't even cross your mind. You're like, I'm going to at least hit the target, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you shoot an arrow at a deer in the woods, you have hit that animal, and he knows you're there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that moment, when he's running around to the back of your tree stand, that's a great time to be knocking another arrow, grabbing an arrow. And maybe that's part of your process hunting. It is mine.
Yeah.
my arrows, they're not on my quiver either, but they are in a position to where my second arrow is not fully seated in the quiver.
Correct.
It's just a little bit there, so I can pull it out and knock it and be prepared. And that's just one of them, in my opinion, deals.
Yeah, it's your process.
But,
yeah.
But the idea of missing an animal so bad that he, runs 5-10 yards and is kind of looking around like, what happened, and I don't want him to see me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even consider that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Well, I mean, I guess that's, and I guess like you said, in your opinion, I guess it could be situational based. Me, this year on my buck, I continually talked to myself the whole time it came in. You got this, Eddie. You got this. You got this.
Yes.
And when I shot that deer, I know I killed that deer, but I also was not 100% confident because I didn't get an exit. I saw where that arrow was. I saw that's a dead deer, but then it went to the self-doubt because that deer, if I wanted to knock an arrow, it would have just been to knock an arrow because that deer took off and was out of there,
Yeah.
So I guess it'd be situational based because he hit his in his. Did you catch a limb?
No, mine just hit the liver. So I hit the liver, and he just moved 2 yards. And as soon as I hit him move 2 yards and not do anything, that's when I grabbed the other arrow. I was like, oh, I gotta get another shot in.
Good.
But it's usually when I shoot it, I just look and see if he's gonna run 80 yards. There's no point putting another arrow, or I can take my time putting the other arrow. But I'm just looking, assessing the situation of what I'm doing next. I don't want to rush it either because I know if I rush it the way that I am, I'm gonna make a bigger mistake than I do. So I just let it be how it is.
Yeah, two things. I love what you said right there. Mainly knowing yourself, knowing your capabilities and your abilities. Right, you got to work within that while you're growing your abilities and assessing the situation. That's perfect. In my mind, I'm one of these people that would rather have it not need it than need it not have it.
I hear you.
And a personal story for me that made me, because my dad used to always tell me, as soon as you shoot, knock you another arrow, right?
Yeah,
and I'm like you. I shoot a deer and I'm like, oh, I smoked that dude. Why am I ain't knocking another arrow, right?
Yeah.
So one year, I had a buck come in, and this was, this is before my military time. I'm probably 17 at this point. This buck came across the ridge, came down 15 yards, right? So I smoked this buck, and I don't know why, but for some reason, I shot him. I knew I made a good shot, and he ran down the mountainside, and I just reached around and knocked another arrow. And I heard something behind me, and I looked, and these two does. For whatever reason, I guess they were, the buck was messing with the does. They thought the buck just ran off.
Yeah.
So they come trotting around 25 yards in front of me and start eating acorns again. So I smoked one of them. Had I not had my arrow on, maybe I didn't have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a chance, and my brain's a little different than everybody else's, but I'd rather need it not have it is have it not need it.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah, I think through life experience, right, you're going to develop your situational awareness, I guess, over time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
Their examples were more, all three of our examples are more mental, but mine was a little different than theirs in the fact that I shot mine in pretty much a catcher stance from a tree stand. I guarantee you nobody, including myself, has ever practiced that shot. Well, not ever, but... you're not practicing that shot, right? So that brings you into being in uncomfortable situations, but still being able to, pull through your release.
Execute.
Thank you. Yes, perfect.
Yeah.
Execute the shot, and luckily I was able to after I missed a shot the first time.
Yeah. And what's great about that situation you just explained is I bet you next season you practice that shot a little bit, right?
Probably,
You're like,
yeah.
hey, let me get on my knees at least and see how it feels.
Oh, I'm gonna be on my knees in that cold bath shooting. just you wait.
Hey, I had a sergeant major in the Army, and for PT in the morning, he'd bring his bow, and he would just do sprints, and he brought a target. He'd do sprints and then shoot his bow. Then he'd drag a sandbag around, shoot his bow. Then he'd, bear crawl and sit on his butt and shoot his bow. And that's what he did for an hour for PT.
Jeez. Do you think that there's a limit to making yourself uncomfortable to where you're just more hurting yourself than anything? Like for instance, I've seen guys, and I've even thought about doing it, like getting one of those, I don't even know what you call them. It's like a Bosu ball cut in half, and you stand on it. It's for balance, more or less.
Yeah.
They'll stand on that, and then they'll stand one-footed, and then you got, I'm not going to say names, but, people tickling their ears with feathers and dumping gallons of water on. Like, at what point in time does it's like, okay, we're getting a little carried away here?
I actually, I was going to say believe it or not, but actually, I'm sure you believe this. I actually have a real story about that in the Army. When I was in Ranger Regiment, we used to, when new guys would come in, we have to program our radio. That's like putting the frequencies in there, changing stations and all that stuff. And a lot of times in the military, we're doing operations, it's in the dark, it's in the cold, it's in the rain, right? War is never in a beautifully sunny day, right? Where everybody's, got
72, high-fiving.
Yeah, Instagram's nowhere to be found those days.
Right. But we used to put people in the dark, programming radios, dumping water on them and all that stuff. We actually did that. Now, it doesn't work. I'm sure there's benefit to it because it teaches you to focus. BUDS is a lot like that. Navy SEALs, Basic Underwater Demolition Course, has a lot of similarities like that. The whole point is to try to break your brain. But I would say the only time that something is not beneficial is when it's going to hurt your health. And the main thing about being uncomfortable in these situations that will hurt your health is heat. Heat will injure your body a lot faster than cold. The other stuff, the feathers, the tapping you on the head, that we're not naming names about. All of that is just annoying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think where the injury comes in is the heat. You got to watch training in the heat. That's why BUDS uses cold water. It's because you have a lot of left and right limit there with cold. You can get super cold and still be okay, but how hot you get, there's a small margin of error right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I have a question. Nah, the world ain't perfect, unfortunately. Now,
what?
Have you seen Instagram?
Now, if you have a fundamental breakdown, are you able to diagnose it right away? Say you miss a deer or something, you have a fundamental breakdown. How do you fix that next time you go and practice or put yourself in the same situation when a deer comes in?
So when I think that's all back to practice, okay? When I practice, every shot that I make, I know exactly what's going on.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So if I shoot and I miss to the right, I know that, okay, I probably had too much pressure on my release hand, or when I was pulling out more than back or something.
Okay.
And this is just through practice and experience for me. And if you don't know why you missed in practice, video yourself. Do it in slow-mo. And you can actually see what your body's doing, and you'll have this aha moment. But in those situations where you don't know yourself and you miss, you have to assume it's not the equipment. Now, sometimes it is, right? Walking through the woods, your sight gets bumped or whatever, but 99% of the time when we miss, it's us. Our equipment usually doesn't fail us. We have pretty good equipment these days. But it comes to you knowing yourself and your tendencies. So if you miss low on a deer, you can probably think back, the other day I was practicing, I had a couple shots low. I need to go home and figure this out.
I have trouble following through when I have a doe come in. I get too confident. You know what I'm saying? Oh, she's dead, and I don't finish. It's a fundamental breakdown because I did that on the first doe this year. She popped up, and I technically, mentally, I even told I think I told you guys, I mentally wasn't even prepared because she just popped up. I just got in the tree stand, and I shot and I dropped, and I missed her low. And that was a fundamental because I wasn't even in the mentality at the point. I was putting my gloves on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those surprises come up. It really comes to the mental game, guys. I mean, everything we do in life is so much controlling your brain and being calm and collected. And it just takes training. Your brain needs training, just like, if you want a big bicep or strong legs, you got to train them. You got to train your brain the same. And we all know it, right? For older people, they want them to do Sudoku or crossword puzzles or whatever to ward off Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our brain needs training just like everything else.
Yeah,
I agree. I think I got a question and a statement. The statement is, one of the biggest benefits for me that I've pulled from target archery is when I first walked up to a line and you're sitting, you're only a foot away from the guy in front of you. Indoor archery mostly,
If that, I mean, he's right there.
Yeah, and they say, okay, bottoms up, everybody gets up, you draw back, everyone's at full draw, then all of a sudden you start hearing everybody's releases click.
Yeah.
And it just immediately your brain just goes, what is going on? And you look at your pin and it's on the guy next to you's target because you're just so out of it. And I think what that does, right, at least it did for me, was it forces you to hyper focus on what you're doing, and everything outside of you doesn't matter.
That's right.
And I think that particular portion transfers very well into the woods because you're never in control of anything but yourself.
That's right.
It's never a perfect situation. You're never shooting at from a perfect angle. You're not, you might not be able to perfectly bend your hips and all that stuff, or it might be windy, it might be raining.
You might be putting your gloves on.
yeah. You might be taking a leak because you had too many coffees in the morning.
Moral of the story:
don't practice that in the yard because you might go to prison. But just saying.
You said just don't wear gloves. There you go.
Eddie don't like, or not Eddie. Antonio don't wear gloves, right?
No, I don't. No. I can't shoot with gloves.
I forget what my question was now.
Good.
All right, great question. But I'll just piggyback for what you're saying. You can only control the controllables. You can't control the weather. You can't control the timing of when that animal walks up. You can't control a lot of things, but what you can control, you need to have under control. Mm-hmm. Because it's uncontrolled timing of that animal walking up, and then your uncontrolled shot together equals disaster.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in hindsight, I should have never taken that shot. I wasn't prepared for it in hindsight. But
he was excited to get on the board.
I was. We have a little competition going, and I want points.
It's amazing what that does. That changes how your brain works. Like, in the backyard, you could shoot a 300, right? Like, I just was shooting today, and I shot a 300 51X NFAA score, right?
Yeah.
I go shoot the exact same style when there's a bunch of people, and I guarantee you I'm not going to shoot that, right? It's just like how do you get to that? Like, how does Levi Morgan get from shooting perfect in the backyard to shooting perfect when $50,000 is on the line?
He has been in uncomfortable situations, i.e. shooting under pressure, so many times that shooting under pressure is normal for him. That's why the top pros look like they're not nervous. They are all nervous. Every one of them's nervous. There was a few years ago, they put some heart monitors on some guys and actually, track their heart rate through the tournament. And every one of them had a huge spike. And then it went down and had another spike. So all of them get nervous. It's just being in that situation, you cannot mimic a buck of a lifetime walking in front of you. You can't 100% prepare for that, right? And you definitely can't do it like Levi does and puts himself in a, championship shoot off at a tournament 8 times a year. You know what I mean? But you can duplicate it or replicate it as best as possible. And mental imaging is a way that I do it. When I'm in my sauna after a workout, I close my eyes because that's 20 minutes I'm in that sauna, right? What can I do in 20 minutes to make me a better archer? Well, I close my eyes for a few minutes and I simulate running through a tournament. I'm standing on the line. I can hear those arrows popping in everybody's target. I'm running through my process. I can feel my heart starting to beat a little bit, right? And I'm just envisioning the perfect shot. And that's just one way that you can do this. Nathan Brooks, great archer. I mean, he's won all kinds of stuff. Shoots for elite. He told me one time that he used to sit in his kitchen and turn the light off and shoot an entire NFAA 5-spot round in his mind. You want to talk about focus? How much focus you got to have to close your eyes and run through that step by step? I mean, what's that take, an hour?
That's nuts.
My ADHD will kick in. It'll be like, fuck this. Let's go do dishes or something.
Yeah, that's
Right?
That's insane, dude.
that's a borderline of like discipline and like psychotic.
psychotic.
Now,
good question.
what I described to you right there, the mere mortals like us, because I'm not a Nathan Brooks, I'm not a Levi Morgan, we are like, that's out to lunch. Like, how am I going to do that? But that level of discipline, that level of dedication is what makes them boys and women that level of archers. I mean,
obsessive.
we think that, oh, well, they're just talented, and some of them are. But most of them do things and practice in ways that us mere mortals can't even fathom. And that's why they're professionals. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's like Jesse Broadwater. He's like probably one of my idols as far as shooting a bow. That guy eats, sleeps, and breathes a bow and arrow.
100%.
And he's one of the most fluid and cleanest shots in archery. His form is in my opinion, this is 100% my opinion. His form is probably some of the best form you'll see. And if you watch him shoot, it looks like he's literally just shooting in the backyard for nothing, and he's shooting for, some of the most important tournaments in the world, and he's won pretty much every tournament there is to know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of strong opinions about personalities in archery. One of those opinions is that an alpha male who is strongly driven and highly competitive and always trying to be better is less apt to do well because they put so much pressure on themselves, to where a beta male is real chill and relaxed and don't really worry about nothing and can handle that pressure a little more because they don't get all worked up about it. So I think there's a little truth to that. But I also think the major factor is the work that's put in. You can watch Levi on his hunting show shoot bucks with racks that I can't even imagine seeing in real life. And you can still see he gets ramped up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that competition archery that keeps him ramped up all summer long prepares him for when he's ramped up when that deer shows up. It's just the same type of process.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like football. Controlled aggression uncontrolled aggression is good for nobody.
Correct.
But if you can learn to control that aggression, you can become an elite person.
Yeah, you got to stay out of the peaks and the valleys. Stay in that center, try and ride that center line out, because you get too high, you screw up. You get too low, you screw up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it seems like the guys who are that elite level can stay at that high output and ride that without having those drops. You know what I mean? Where the normal guy's just at that normal baseline, just kind of getting through.
Yeah.
And it sounds.
It's
Go ahead, buddy. Sorry.
It's a reality deal. You mentioned it. You know, if we said that somebody's obsessive about something, that comes with a little negative connotation, right? But do you want to be the best or not? You know what I mean? If you want to be the best in the world, you better start obsessing about it, because you can guarantee the person trying to beat you is obsessed about it. They dream about it. They read about it, watch movies about it. Everything's about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You do something halfway and be the best. It's impossible.
That constant quest for perfection separates the people who talk about it and the people who try to do it.
Right.
Right. Like that's what you're trying to overcome. Like everybody talks about trying to be perfect, but you're never going to get there until you actually do it, which I think really leads into the repetition is from what I'm, in my brain, repetition is not the single, but the most important part of it all. And you can make the biggest leaps and gains just with repetition alone.
Yeah, there's the reps are super important, right? So the reps really, and when I say reps, I'm just going ahead and assume these are perfect reps. Okay.
Correct.
They're super important because it just drives it in your brain to where maybe you do go a little brain dead when that buck walks up, but you kind of go on autopilot for a second. And that comes from, the best in the world don't do things, till they get it right. They do things till they cannot get it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I talk about Michael Jordan a lot, because in my lifetime, I consider him probably the GOAT of basketball, but that's a controversial subject. But he probably never had a bad shot. You know what I mean? Because he didn't know how to shoot the basketball incorrectly. His body couldn't do it because he had done it so much, so many perfect times. When I shoot in here, there is a lot of times I'm like, that definitely was not a perfect shot, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to shoot so much that it's just like you know what's going to happen before it happens. As soon as you look at the target, you're like, I know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Pin's going to settle in the middle. I'm going to start pulling, or however you shoot your release, and boom. You're like, of course it's in the middle. It's what I do all the time. Mm-hmm. And
right.
That's how Jesse Broadwater thinks. Yeah, of course I hit the middle.
Yeah. When he doesn't hit the middle, he's like, well, that
the wind was lit off.
Yeah, that arrow must be bent or something.
Yeah. Hey, you want to talk about rabbit holes? We don't want to go down what type of equipment makes you shoot better, and if your arrows are 1,000 straighter or 3,000 straighter.
Well,
Dan,
I have a strong opinion on this.
Yeah. What is it?
What's my opinion?
Yeah.
My opinion is, how can I say this? I think people get too wrapped up on what a website says. What that particular arrow website says. Straightness 0.001. Tolerance 100%. Is 0.5 inch. Blah blah blah. So on and so forth.
Yep.
I think you can, if you shoot your bow a lot to the point where you are able to tell a difference between that, I think you're going to find out that it's very minute. The normal person cannot tell you the difference between a 001 shaft and a 006 shaft.
100%.
And to prove that, I actually built 006 shafts and shot them out to 100 yards and was grouping them. And for me, I was grouping them okay. Now, would they have been a little tighter with .001? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think I can see that in my shot. I don't think I can see that in my shot execution. I think the wind is going to play a bigger role than that difference. My anchor point's going to play a different role. Me shaking, like the human element, I think is far greater than any structural element in an arrow.
I think grains is more important than tolerance.
Weight, correct.
Yes.
Especially at distance.
Yes, correct.
All right, floor is yours, sir.
It's one of them, in my humble opinion, moments. I agree with you 1,000%. The only thing that I think, because I'm guilty of this, right? I love the Gucci stuff. That's just how I am, right? I want the shiniest stuff, whatever. But the only reason that it makes a difference, it goes back to your brain, right? I've had, I'm a strength conditioning coach and all this stuff too, and I've had clients have a hard time getting to the gym and staying in the gym, but if they bought new workout shoes, all of a sudden they're in the gym every day, right? In my mind, I'm like, that's ridiculous, right? But if that's what it takes to be confident in your brain, buy them shoes, buy 8 pairs of them. So if it takes confidence in your shot to have, a $300 rest instead of your Whisker Biscuit, get it. It ain't gonna make you shoot any better, but
if it makes you feel better,
do it. But it goes back to mental toughness and controlling your brain, because what we're talking about, everyone agrees, right? Not everyone. I'm gonna say 90% of people agree. They'll agree that, I bought this new bow and I pretty much shoot the same. Mm-hmm. But it don't stop them from buying the bow, right? Because we can't control our brains and understand that it's not the equipment. Stop. I tell my father-in-law all the time, I'm like, hey, stop worrying about what Darren Christianberry said to do with this site, or what Tim Gillingham said to buy this release or whatever. Go shoot your bow. You know what I mean? You got to shoot your bow, perfect your form, and then you can start upgrading. Professional archers, professional anything, professional shooters, professional golfers, their number one priority is themselves, right? And way down on the bottom of the list is, for a golfer, is what type of clubs he has. I mean, I promise you, you can give Tiger Woods the worst set of clubs in the world and he's going to take your lunch money. You know what I mean?
For sure.
His clubs don't make him the golfer he is. Jesse Broadwater's arrows don't make him the archer he is. And sometimes we lose focus on that. We just need to go shoot our bows, go train our bodies, train our minds, fuel our bodies with good nutrition, get plenty sleep, be healthy, and be the best that we can be, because that's all we can control.
So, and by good nutrition, you're saying Red Bulls and gas station burritos, right? Is that?
Just for you. You're the only one that do that.
So if I stop doing that, I might have a couple more X's on my score sheet here. If I switch to cottage cheese and what else is healthy?
Fruit.
Yeah, fruit.
Kale.
Nah, fuck that guy. He's my friend. I'm allowed to say that.
Because I'm a noob here on podcast, I don't know if we could edit this out or leave it for funsies on my behalf, but my phone says that I've got low storage.
Huh.
It says my storage is running low. You should stop the recording and free up data.
Oh, snap.
I don't even know what that means.
No.
I don't either.
See, this is the point where we're, in the beginning where you said you're just getting into the video. We're just getting into the podcasting. Yeah, we don't know. And we're not afraid to say it. We don't know. Yeah. Maybe.
Cool.
Because it should be recording to
us,
like a cloud. It shouldn't be.
Yeah. Mine's definitely recording.
Well, if you disappear, we know you didn't hang up on us.
Nope.
He's like, I'm sick of this, guys.
Well, we know for further that apparently, I wonder if it's because I did video on this one.
Maybe. But back to what you're saying about like the equipment and stuff. I worked in a bow shop for almost 10 years, and the amount of guys that would come in Saturday after shooting Sunday at some shoot, and I'd have to order them $300-$400 rest because the winner of that weekend shot it. And they'd come in and buy them like, bro, you just bought one last weekend. How do you not? You didn't even give it a chance.
It's amazing, man. You see. Go ahead. Sorry, buddy.
Yeah, I said they say, well, so-and-so was shooting this one, and if I get it, I'll shoot like him. Why do you think Levi Morgan gets paid by Matthews? I mean, just his presence alone sells bows.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm not taking away from Levi. Levi's an amazing archer. He's a great person. But that's the whole point, and they know it. They know it.
Absolutely.
But it ain't an archer to get a Matthews.
No.
Even though I like him.
You have been talking about liking that phase 4.
Yeah, big fan of phase 4. I'm shooting the title too. I got the title. Man, that thing, it pounds, right? It shoots well, but that thing is a man's bow. I mean, 70-pound draw on that thing feels like it might be 75. The valve is so small. You can see in some of my videos, I posted a story the other day, I think it was yesterday, of me drawing back and in slow motion of my release. And you can see when I draw it back, man, I get to the end of the draw cycle and it's just like, don't, it just like hammers in the back wall.
A little
like
rough.
one of them old,
I have a question. I was doing some peeking on your Instagram the other day. I would like to know about your spine testing. You put that in the press, your arrows. I wanted to know.
Oh, yeah.
I want to know about that. I never even thought of it as a test. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a poor man's version of checking spine. So just to nerd out on a second.
Here we go.
Love it.
Brace yourselves.
Spine is checked, and I might misquote this, but the spine of an arrow is a 31 inches of the arrow. So there's a node at the front and node at the back, and it's 31 inches, and it's held in this machine, and it's a 2-pound weight is placed in the middle to kind of pull it down. And how much deflection is in that arrow is what the spine is. So if it deflects 200 thousandths, well, it's a 200 spine. If it deflects 400 thousandths, it's a 400 spine, right? So that's how they get the stiffness and the weakness. Well, that spine is not perfect all the way around the arrow. There's some variances in it. And when you can put it in that same tester and spin the arrow, and the indicator will move up and down a little bit, and you will find the weak point of the spine, and you can mark it and I put mine up, right? So in a compound bow, when you shoot the bow with a release, the arrow flexes up. When you shoot fingers, like on a recurve, it flexes out. So you want that mark to where the arrow's naturally going to flex. And you might have, a dozen arrows, and they may be anywhere from 358 to 340 spine. So if you have, a 340 spine arrow and a 360 spine arrow, you can imagine the tune's a little different. So what I do for the poor man version is I put it in my press and I just squeeze the arrow just a little bit, and it'll bend up or bend down or bend sideways or whatever. And I just twist it around a little bit. I'll unsqueeze it, twist it, squeeze it, unsqueeze it, twist it, till it bends straight up every time. And then I'll mark that spot. And that is where I consider the weakest point of the spine is. Now, it's not perfect, but it's the poor man version.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Now I float test mine, and I don't necessarily believe in it, but I do it as a process. You know what I mean? I try and make everything as good as it can be. That's
right. Control what you can control.
Yeah.
Yep. I honestly believe that's kind of a shortcut. It's spine checking that arrow is a shortcut to knock tuning. You guys familiar with knock tuning?
Yep.
Okay, so when you take every arrow and you shoot it through paper and you spin the knock a little bit till every arrow is shooting a bullet hole, that takes a long time and it's very time consuming. And I would say shooting the arrow is the best way to get it coming out of the bow the exact same. However, I choose to not spend that much time because I know I'm not good enough an archer for it to matter. But the little bit of time that it takes me, maybe 10 minutes that it takes me to put those in my bow press and find the weak point, that juice is worth the squeeze to me. So I do that in my arrow building process.
Now, why do you like to put the weakest point at top? Why not bottom? Is that just
because the arrows flex to the weakest part, and with a compound bow, the arrow flexing up gets it up and away from the rest.
Okay.
So it gives you more clearance. I also like to tune my bow where I have a little high left paper tear. I intentionally put a little bias into my shot. So if I make a bad shot, the arrow's already headed high and left, and it's more likely to be consistent. Where if I'm shooting a bullet hole, if I make a bad shot and I put bias into the shot, it could go high left, high right, low left. It could go anywhere from that center. But if it's automatically heading high left, for one, I'm getting better clearance off my rest, and two, I'm already putting bias in that arrow, so it's more likely to be consistent.
Okay.
That's pretty good. I didn't even think of
Sorry.
No, you're good. I asked the question. I like to hear this stuff. This is working at a bow shop. You run into a lot of guys, and everybody's got different ways of doing things, and it's cool to hear your way.
Absolutely. That's a great point too. There is, they always say there's more than one way to skin a cat. In archery, there might be 10 million ways to skin that cat, right?
Correct.
Because I've had people tell me, and I do believe draw length matters. It is important for controlling your sight picture and your pin movement and stuff like that. But if you think draw length's one of the most important factors in archery, tell that to the guy shooting with no arms. How's he considering draw length? You know what I mean? Clearly, it's not important to him. So there's 900 ways to do everything. You have to find what works for you and what you have confidence in is really the main thing.
Mm-hmm. I think people are so worried about draw length because it's directly related to speed, and for whatever reason, people think that if you shoot faster, you shoot better.
Yeah. Well, I think that is
it's a mental thing.
What?
It's a mental thing.
Yeah, and it gives you leeway. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't shoot distance, but if that deer's out there at 40 yards, I'm going to send it because I got a fast bow. It's going to get there.
Yeah, well, if you have a 900 grain arrow,
yeah,
you can skip it off the ground and into the deer and still penetrate the deer.
In 10 years.
My theory on speed is if you shoot fast,
Just miss quicker.
will just miss fast. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
In 3D archery, speed is important because you want to even the playing field, right? So let's say IBO, ASA, whatever. You want to shoot at the maximum speed you can, but it's not hard to shoot 290 plus or minus 3 feet per second. Like, that's not hard to do. But when you have guys trying to shoot, 340 feet per second with a hunting bow, I'm like, what are you even doing at that point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got a lot more going wrong than you're trying to benefit by that speed.
Yeah, I'm huge on efficiency, especially when it comes to hunting. I want that stuff to pass through. I want that, I want everything to work the way it's supposed to work. And when you start getting fast, you start adding some.
You're losing.
It's so sensitive. It's the way that it works.
Yeah, the more speed you have, I mean, it happens this way, right? You have the arrow is going faster, your draw length's longer. So if your draw length's longer, now we're talking brace height and have a more forgiving bow. And everybody's shooting these real short bows with no brace height, so that's out the window. The poundage is higher, so now you're less comfortable holding the bow and shooting. And it all comes down to knowing why you're doing what you're doing. So if you're a deer hunter, a whitetail hunter in East Tennessee, and you're hunting in the mountains and you think you need to shoot 350 feet per second and shoot 80 pounds, like Cam Haynes or something, that's insane. If you shoot 30 yards, you have just shot a country mile in the mountains. You know what I mean? You got to know why you're doing what you're doing and stay off Instagram Unless, of course, you're following me, then you get all kinds of good advice.
Absolutely.
You gotta be realistic. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just be realistic as hell.
So climbing a mountain with a rock is not a good idea? Is that what you're saying? Because of Cameron Haynes?
Well, unless you're going to stay up there for a few days.
I like to go for, personally, I like to do forgiveness, right? Like that's I like to base my platforms around. Now, granted, I can say that comfortably because I have a 31-inch draw and I'm shooting from my hunting bow. I'm shooting 70 pounds. So I get a lot of benefit from that, right? Like I'm not going to say that I don't get that benefit. So speed really doesn't matter to me.
You already get it.
Yeah, excuse me. Went down the wrong pipe. So yeah, like for a guy who's got a 26-inch, or a gal, who's got a 26-inch draw, 25-inch draw, I can see where, the more important thing in their view might be speed, because that's, they're lacking that. But actually, I want to transition a little bit. For hunting wise, and you might not, have a lot of intel on this. Do you think speed, say you're going to set up a bow for a female or some, like a kid or something like that, are you going super fast, or are you going super slow? Are you going fixed blade? Are you going mechanical? Like, what's your thought process in that avenue?
Because I am a tournament archer first and I'm a hunter second, right? There's a lot of guys that are hunters first and shoot competition to get better, to be a better hunter. I'm kind of the opposite. I hunt for fun because I love to be in the woods and hunt, but I'm really at my core a tournament archer. I base a lot of that on accuracy and being able to practice. So practicing with fixed blade broadheads is expensive. You go through blades, you go through targets like mad. Yeah. And I practice a lot. And I don't feel comfortable tuning my bow with fixed blades, shooting a handful of arrows and be like, okay, yeah, they hit pretty close to my field points. I'm going to take them back off now, sharpen the blades or whatever, and put them in my hunting quiver and just practice all the time with my field points. I don't have a warm and fuzzy about that. So because of that, I'm a mechanical guy. So I can shoot all day, every day with my mechanical broadheads, and I know for a fact that they're pounding. And, I do things to my broadheads. Some of those mechanicals, the ones I shoot, have this rubber grommet thing that goes in there, and the blades open up and break that grommet. And there's a lot of complaints that they don't come open all the way or whatever. Will control the controllables. What can you do to fix that, right? So I just take that grommet out and put a piece of tape around that clear, like Christmas wrapping paper. What's that called?
Like, Scotch tape. Scotch tape.
Scotch tape.
Yeah.
Put a little Scotch tape around it. Bada bing, bada boom. There ain't nothing holding that back. So my focus is accuracy. With the speed thing, the short draw length people have a concern about speed because it's even hard for a 25, 26-inch draw length to even hit 300 feet per second, right? That's tough. When I think of speed, 300, 315 is like fast. That's like super fast. Anything above that is just, you're getting gray in the gray area, I think. But a lot of times when we talk speed with them short draw length, it's because they can't even hit 300. So a guy with a 30-inch draw length should have no problem hitting 300 feet per second with a 400-something grain arrow. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the speed thing for me is way down on the list. Number one is accuracy. So that's a big ball of things. Dan, you talked about the forgiveness and all that stuff. Repeatability. And then for two is being able to practice like you're going to hunt with anything, especially even in the military, sports, whatever, you practice like it's game day. You don't, how many people have you heard say, they missed, and they'll never shoot that broadhead again. It caused them to miss, right?
Too many times I can count.
Either that's a lie, or they weren't prepared with that broadhead. That broadhead did something that surprised them. And if you practice enough with that broadhead, there shouldn't be any surprises.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, moral of the story is don't screw on your broadheads a week before season and then bitch about the broadhead. It's not the broadhead.
No, it ain't the broadhead. Go shoot your bow.
Yeah, back to that again. Repetition.
Yeah.
I want to bounce back probably about 35 minutes in this conversation. And we do that a lot here. Just to let you know, listeners are already full aware if they've gotten through this many episodes. We talked a little bit about like putting yourself in like Levi Morgan. I heard him say once that, I'll just go right to the example. Through the qualifications, he shot a hinge, and then once he got to the shoot up, he switched to a thumb.
Yep.
Now, I would love to hear your point of view on that, because I think there's really two ways you can think about that. One is he's switching to a thumb because he knows that he can control the situation a little bit better, and he knows that he's going to have nerves, so that's how he's going to handle it. Versus the theory of you're falling back on you're hiding from the actual problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, maybe, I'm not saying you didn't hear that story, but maybe we heard a different story. But what I have seen him do is shoot a thumb for most of the tournament. And then when things get weird or he gets more nervous, then he goes to the hinge when he's more nervous. Because people have more of a tendency when they have target panic to punch a hinge punch a thumb than a hinge. Mm-hmm. You're kind of forced. I mean, you can punch a hinge, but that's probably the worst archery shot ever is to punch a hinge, but you can do it. But that hinge kind of forces you back into controlling your shot. But the reason people go back and forth, like you were talking about, is it putting a Band-Aid on it? It's knowing yourself and operating within your limitations and controlling the controllable. The perfect scenario, I think, is fix your brain so you don't have that problem. Mm-hmm. Okay? So you don't have to switch releases in the middle of a tournament to be able to shoot better under pressure, right? But not everybody can do that. Everyone's built different. Everybody needs something that's a little different. And if you know yourself, then you do what you got to do to get through it. He makes, I don't even know, boatloads of money a year winning archery tournaments. So clearly he has a method that works for him. But what works for me is in that situation, switching a release is not going to fix my brain. My brain is the problem. I have to go back to my process and do what I got to do to get through that shot. You know what I'm saying? So switching releases is not going to fix your problem. How many times, and I've been guilty of this, but I know a lot of people, they'll shoot for a little bit and they're like, oh man, let me try this other release. And they pick that release up. They're like, yes, it's way better. You start shooting better. Well, that's called the honeymoon phase. Because after about another week or two, they're like, oh, man, I'm going to go back to that other release. And before you know it, you've shot a different release every other week for the last 6 months.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, right? You talked about repetition. How much repetition you get in there? You're just confusing yourself. You don't really solidify anything because you're going back and forth.
Right.
So to make a long story longer, pick what you like and perfect it. Be obsessed about it till it's perfect.
I would agree with a lot of that. When I went to a thumb release, it probably took me 2-3 maybe months to actually commit to it. And then once I committed to it, it was the best thing I ever did. But it was getting over that hump of, a lot of guys will go buy something and they hate it after 2 weeks, but you never gave it a fair shake. You never committed.
Oh, yeah.
I think you got to commit. You got to
I'm very, very, very guilty of that. And you are correct. I did misspoke. I said it backwards about Levi Morgan thing. When I'm shooting in a tournament, whatever, a league, we'll say leagues. You're shooting once a week, right? And I'll shoot my thumb because I hunt with a thumb.
Yep.
And it seems like the first 6 weeks, the first 6 shoots, I shoot really good with the thumb. And then all of a sudden, it's like I just slowly start going downhill.
Yep.
My quick fix is just to take my hinge out, boom, 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 for a couple of weeks, and I'm right back into it. This year, I'm just shooting my hinge the whole time exclusively. Is that the best route to go? I don't know. Should I have stuck with the thumb through that downgrade to put yourself in that uncomfortable position and learn how to work your way out of that? That's probably okay. Yeah, that I was gonna say that's probably the right way to go.
So I got 2 comments or opinions about that. One is, like I said, I am a tournament archer first, hunter second. Sounds to me like you guys are definitely hunters first, and then do archery to perfect your hunting. I would 100% recommend whatever setup you shoot with hunting, I would do that in competitions. So if you hunt with a hinge, stay with your hinge. If you hunt with a button, I would stay with a button. That's reason number 1. I would stick with one thing. The second reason is a hinge can be used as a tool. Okay. So you're using a hinge as a tool to fix your brain. So your brain goes south on you with your button. You're having problems controlling your shot. So you go to the hinge, you get your brain back in order, and then you can go back to the button and be successful with it again. How about we take that hinge, throw it out in the woods as far as you can throw it, and never touch it again, and you actually perfect the release that you enjoy shooting, the button, since you keep going back to the button, just to pick on you and you use an example, and fix your brain to where, as we talked in the beginning of this, people that operate at a high level don't have such high and lows. They operate in the highs all the time. So if you're having a high with that thumb and you're bottoming out because it sucks and you get your hinge, you come back out of the valley to the high, you know what I mean? Stick with that thumb and work through it and figure out why or what's causing you to not be able to shoot as good. And if you fix that, you're done forever.
Right. That was something I think we talked about several months ago on the phone, was how to act, and this actually kind of like blew my mind, on your philosophy on how to activate a thumb trigger.
Well, speaking of blowing minds, let me hit you with this. I think, all right, you got people that have a surprise shot and you got punchers, which is a not surprise shot, okay? The idea that somebody wants to call punching command shooting to try to church it up, because we talked about being obsessive is a negative term, but it's actually okay. People think of punching with a negative connotation, so they want to call it command shooting to make it sound okay. Well, let me tell you a secret. Whether you are slowly pushing a trigger or hammering it, your brain is commanding your finger to pull the trigger. It's commanding it to hit it hard or make it go slow. All shooting is command shooting. You're commanding the shot to fire one way or the other. So let's don't church it up with command shooting. It's punching or surprise shot. And a lot of high-level punchers, right? Jimmy Lutz, Gillingham, Kyle Douglas, they'll straight up tell you I punch. They don't say I'm a command shooter, right? They're like, I'm a puncher. They even make hats that say puncher, right? They're proud of it. And they should be killing it.
Yeah.
But I believe the best way to fire any release is using a single digit to command the shot. When we shoot a rifle, nobody's shooting, no competition rifle shooter is shooting a rifle with back tension or relaxing their hand or whatever, right? they are slowly squeezing the trigger with one digit because they have trained their brain to be okay with it, to be able to look at the sight, accept the float, and slowly squeeze the trigger till you have a surprise shot. Shooting a release on a bow is no different, with a caveat. Just like you went to a hinge to kind of get your brain back in order, you use it as a tool. Some people use, relaxing their hand into their thumb, or pulling into the shot, or wrapping their thumb and pulling. They use these things as ways to execute the shot because their brain can handle that better. But the reality is the single digit manipulation is the most accurate because it has the least amount of muscles involved. Every muscle that gets activated in an archery shot affects your sight picture. So if you can fix your brain to control one digit, the least amount of muscles, that is the most accurate way to shoot any release, I believe.
Makes sense. 100%.
These are all
my
strong.
brain froze there for a second.
Well, no, I mean, I'd think about using my tension versus my thumb. When I shoot my tension, I have a little bit more shake because I'm doing more. I'm trying to,
pushing and pulling.
And again, activating more muscles and stuff like that makes that shake go on. And it's not like it's just it's just a little uptick in the.
Like you said, it changes your sight picture just enough.
Yes, and just enough.
What's
your and it goes along the lines of my opinion with back tension. People call a hinge a back tension release. It's not a back tension release; it's a hinge.
Correct.
You can shoot a thumb button with back tension. You can shoot a index finger release with back tension. The true only back tension release is probably a recurve archer that pulls through a clicker with their back.
Right.
Because every archery shot should be shot with back tension, right? Once I come to full draw and I anchor, all muscle that holds my bow at full draw is transferred to my back. It's not my arms, it's not my hands. Everything's relaxed, and all that motion, all that tension is in my back that holds the bow at full draw. So, every archery shot has back tension in it, in my opinion.
Now, what's your thoughts on we'll go to single digit, right?
Yeah.
Thumb versus index. Theoretically, is there a better way to go about activation of a trigger? Is it better with your thumb or is it better with your index?
I would say it's easier with your thumb because that's more normal to us. Like pulling a trigger with your index finger is very normal feeling. At least it is for me. And I'd say most people would agree that operating your index digit is the most natural feeling. But with your thumb, and when you're pulling this release, it's all in line with the target, right? So you're straight back. What a lot of people struggle with a thumb single digit is, one, controlling your brain and not to punch it, because I can feel even myself sometimes. I can feel the anxiety building up in my body, wanting to just hammer it. But this pressure this way sometimes will want to pull you away from your face, and you have to really focus and concentrate to keep this pull motion straight back.
So you really got to focus on isolating that thumb, the movement of the thumb.
Focus is huge. Every time I shoot my bow, it's an opportunity to practice focus. I'm not really practicing. I mean, there are parts of my shot that I practice, and it's not just archery. When I shoot pistols or whatever, it's an opportunity to focus, to control your brain, make your body do exactly what you want to do, have no extraneous outside negative thoughts entering your brain, focus on what you're doing, and execute perfectly. It's a exercise in focus every time you shoot a shot.
Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on that stand release that came out a little bit ago that has the clicker in it, but it's a thumb?
Oh gosh, why you gotta make me talk about this? You want to talk about going against the grain?
Oh my
Woo!
goodness! You just saying it makes me hurt.
I have anxiety just saying it. Yeah, it's
So I don't know how familiar you are with pistol shooting, but have you ever heard the term taking the slack out of the trigger or
Yep.
taking the trigger to the first wall?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a lot of you know my history a little bit. You know, I had a little bit of success in my teen years in archery and then joined the military. And when I joined the military, the units I was in, I had a lot of high-level shooting training. Guys like Jerry Micklick, guys like that would come and put on seminars and train us how to shoot. But the trigger control is a huge deal in shooting anything, right? That is the bread and butter of accuracy, is controlling the trigger, whether it's thumb, whatever. But back to the clicker deal. All the click is taking your thumb button and turning it into a hair trigger, right? So you're taking the thumb, taking it to the click, and all it is taking the slack out of the trigger. Like a Glock pistol, for instance. There's a lot of slack in that before you even feel resistance. Mm-hmm. So when you take the slack out of a trigger, what you're in the pistol world, in the shooting world, you are able to shoot faster, more accurate, because there's less travel in that trigger. Okay. If I had to let my finger completely off a pistol trigger and then hammer it back every time, there's a lot of movement there. But if I can just take it to the wall, and after I shoot, I reset the trigger just to the wall and not all the way out, I can shoot faster with less manipulation, less movement in the pistol. Well, with an archery shot, we're never shooting multiple shots in rapid succession and need to be accurate. So an archery shot is more like a long-range rifle shooting. One shot, super accurate, as smooth as possible. So it doesn't matter. I actually wouldn't want a hair trigger, right? I don't want to take that to the click and my next movement fire it. I am settled into the shot, and when it's time to execute, you squeeze the trigger slowly till it breaks. You actually want to feel that movement, because that movement's what you need to be concentrated on, not aiming, right? Once you're in the middle, the bow is going to do what it's going to do because your eyes put things in the middle automatically, just like driving or whatever. So if you over aim, that's a problem. Once you're aiming, when you're ready to execute the shot, you need to feel the movement in that trigger. I've got my thumb set up to where I can actually feel it moving. I recently switched to a true ball blade release because I move my thumb so slow that I can feel releases that are sticky. But you can feel it slide a minute and it sticks. Yep. And then you got to push a little harder to get it to slide more. I want it to be a smooth ramp till it breaks. And that true ball blade is the smoothest thumb button that I can find.
Interesting. So it's funny you say that.
A hinge, for instance, you can feel that movement. If you're shooting a hinge right, you can feel it moving, and it's very smooth. There's no friction or anything, and then boom, it breaks. Mm-hmm. Trigger, index, thumb button could be executed the exact same way. It's just harder to do because it's harder to get our brains to stay focused that long, but it's definitely the most accurate.
It's crazy you say that, because you talk to a lot of old timers, at least old timers around here. They're going to tell you how you shoot a thumb is to put that barrel at the base of your thumb, and you're pulling through with your back, right? Like you're not moving your thumb at all. Like your thumb should never move.
Yep.
And theoretically, you're saying the complete opposite, right? That single digit movement of the thumb, like you're knowingly squeezing that trigger.
Yep. Let me give you my reasoning on that, and we're going to do a little history here. So I'm probably not going to tell you anything you don't already know. When I say this, you're going to be like, oh, yeah. Well, back in the 90s, right, when I was shooting competitions before I joined the military, the bows were built way different. The back walls were super spongy, right? So spongy to the tune of I had to go to full draw with my bows. This is back when I shot for Darton back in the day. Come to full draw, and when I was at my anchor, my dad would put marks on my cable, and then I'd let up and we'd put tape on there. So when you come to full draw, when those tapes marks lined up, you stopped because you could draw it, I don't know, an inch past full draw, because that's how much sponge was in the back wall, because the bows had actual wheels for cams. They weren't cams. Mm-hmm. So in those days, you could shoot a pretty good shot pulling through like that because there was sponge and you're not really ever pulling against the back wall. So you could potentially wrap your thumb and pull. Well, today's bows, that back wall, whether you're using a limb stop or a cable stop, it's pretty solid. There ain't much pulling. It's so solid that if you're at full draw and you really try to pull through, you'll pull yourself off target. Mm-hmm. So in today's bows, to get that true old school pulling through the shot thing, it's hard to do and not manipulate your sight picture. So that's why I kind of changed my mentality with today's equipment. That at full draw, you load your back to keep at full draw so you're not creeping, and execute the shot with single digit manipulation like a rifle. You take the recurve, for instance, and that's why I say the recurve, the Olympic style recurver, might be the last true back tension shot there is, because that recurve don't have a back wall. That's why they have to pull through that clicker. So when they release their bow, it's at the exact same draw length every time.
Mm-hmm. You said
that's
creeping. Sorry, I'm not even paying attention to what I'm doing. You said a little bit there about creeping forward.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest things I think that guys suffer from now because of the introduction of these 90% let off bows.
Oh yeah, it's tough.
You don't realize, and myself included, I know I'm guilty of this. You don't realize how much you're creeping through. Right. You will, though, if you pick up a target bow and shoot it. You'll know real quick because your shoulder's going to get ripped out. What's your thoughts on creep tuning? Is that a beneficial tune, or are you just trying to put a Band-Aid once again on something?
It's deeper than creep tuning. You mentioned what's it called? Forgivability, right? When a bow's forgiving. I think that people misunderstand what forgiving means. I think a lot of times they think that forgiving means if the pin is, in the 6 ring on a Vegas target and they pull the trigger, if they have a forgiving bow, it'll go in the 10. If the pin's in the 6, it's going to hit in the 6. Okay. A forgiving bow, where forgiveness comes from, is torque tuning, creep tuning, brace height, putting bias into your paper tuning, that sort of thing. So when you make a bad shot, it still will hit close, right? Mm-hmm. So a bad shot means you've torqued the bow, you've creeped a little bit, you had too much pressure on your face during the shot. Those are bad shots. If I shoot my bow and the pin is not in the middle, I don't expect it to hit in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Now, there is some theory to, if it's in the 9, say at 9 o'clock, and with my normal wobble, right, my pin movement, if it's headed back to the 10 as it's firing, it may go in the 10, but that's not what forgiving means in a setup. That's just normal with any setup, right? The forgiveness is the creep tuning. So I think creep tuning, torque tuning, all that is important in forgiveness. Now I'll say that to say this: the average guy needs to not worry about creep tuning and go shoot his bow. But it does make a difference. And by difference, I mean 1 inch at 30 yards.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're shooting 5-inch groups at 30 yards, creep tuning is your magic pill.
Just for the listeners, can you kind of explain what you mean by creep tuning?
So creep tuning is all about where the limb stops or cable stops touch the bow. Mm-hmm. So it's almost impossible to get a cam exactly timed, right? There's some little gadgets out there to help you get it perfect, but sometimes it can be say the bottom stop is hitting a little bit before the top, and you put a half a twist in the string, and it just flip-flops the problem, right? The top's touching a little bit before the bottom. So sometimes you got what you got. You know what I mean? You got to deal with what you got. So when you're at full draw and you're all the way against the back wall, that's where your bow is tuned and sighted in. But as you creep a little bit, one cam is going to creep just a little bit more than the other. And when it does that, it changes your knock position, right? So when cams are out of tune, the knock is not traveling straight forward and back. It's traveling a little up or a little down because one cam is moving more than the other. So if you have a little bit of creep and your cams aren't perfect, which it's super hard to do, then your knock position moves a little bit up or down, and that's why you miss. So to fix that, you put some tape on the target, and you intentionally pull hard as far back as you can and creep a little bit, and you shoot, and you twist a cable a little bit till where when you're all the way back and creeped a little bit, you have the least amount of variance up and down as possible in your shot.
So you're saying
basically you're kind of timing your cams by shooting your bow in kind of relation to how you would tune your rest group tuning. You know what I'm saying? You can tune your rest with paper, right, or bare shaft, but you can go back to 80 yards and micro tune your rest in, out, up, down, and watch your groups get smaller. You can tune the timing of your bow or your knock travel by using this creep tuning method.
Cool. Very good. Now that you've listened to this episode for an hour and a half, I expect perfect, flawless execution from all of the listeners.
All of them.
I know we can get, and I would love to do a couple more of these and get real specific on topics, maybe like setting up a bow, shoot, like whatever. There's a million ways it can go, especially when you get in the target. I think it's so mental. I think that's why I love it, man. Like, it's so mental, and it's just you, right? Like, it's just
100%.
It's like, it's not a team sport. Well, I get it can be, but it's just you and a piece of equipment, and how consistently can you put an arrow in the center of a target at a various distance.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it, is the pursuit for perfection and controlling your brain.
But you said it best, and listening to you talk about all this made me realize a lot of stuff that I do while shooting the bow that I didn't realize that I do while shooting the bow. But yeah, consistency on the shooting is the best thing to do, because you did say follow your steps when you're have a process when you shoot your bow. Your feet first, then your whatever is it that you do. I find myself doing the opposite of that and shooting better, but that maybe is just me mentally doing that. I don't know if it has something to do with me, not trying to do anything like that. But the more I concentrate about my steps, the worse I get at shooting the bow. So I try to not even think of anything. And when I'm in the tree stand, especially, and I see a deer coming, the last thing in my mind is the process on the bow. But that's just because the way I practice shooting my bow is the best way I shoot is when my mind is completely blank, and I'm just letting the flow of things go. I don't know if I'm subconsciously thinking about steps or not, but I don't remember ever thinking about all the steps to shoot the bow.
Yep. What you're saying is something that I learned in jiu-jitsu and fighting. When you're practicing fighting, it is very purposeful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you punch like this. Make sure the power's coming from your hips. Make sure you kick like this. Make sure, you're defending like this. But when it's time to fight, you don't think about them things. You go very subconscious, and you just, it's called being in the zone, right?
Yeah.
You're in the zone, but you can't practice in the zone, right?
Yeah.
Practicing is not in the zone. Practicing is very purposeful and directed. So when it is game day, you can do those things subconsciously, except the most important thing, which is shooting the release. Executing the shot always has to be in your mind.
I have problems with shooting my because I just changed to a Matthew, and I've been having problems shooting to shooting the Matthew, and I had problems at the beginning. I think I talked to you, Dan, about it. I'm like, man, I'm shooting like shit. I don't know why. And then I came to the realization that I talked to myself about my thumb release while I'm shooting the bow. I'm like, when you shoot the hole, you used to shoot it like that. And then I will go and shoot it like that. I'll be like, shit. And then I'll just leave and then come back in an hour, and then my mind will be blank. And then I'll just shoot it, and I'll shoot good. And I was like, what? Well, you weren't thinking about the goddamn fucking thumb release. And, you're thinking about the wrong thing while thinking about the right thing, I think is what it is.
Yeah. A good way to look at this, at least the way I approach it, is if you don't give your brain something to do, it's liable to do anything.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I am the world champion of my backyard for 46 years running, right? Because there's nothing for my brain to think about.
Yeah.
I want it to think about something.
Yeah.
But in the moment, when it's game day, when you're trying to take your gloves off and that buck walks up, your brain is like, holy crap, I ain't ready. Oh my gosh, you're going to miss this off. Get your bow. Oh my gosh, hurry up, right?
Yeah.
If you don't give your brain a place to go, it will crawl out of your ear and run away, right? So that's the point of thinking about your release and giving your brain a focal point so you can be present in the moment and make a good shot. Yeah. Because if you don't control your brain ever, it's liable to fail you for sure.
Here's a pro tip from Craving Wild. If you're shooting with your buddies, right, and you want to outshoot your buddy, the greatest way to do that is to go up to him and be like, hey, man, you're shooting good. You will not believe the amount of people that will play a psychological war in for the rest of the time you are shooting.
My favorite is to ask people, do you breathe in when you shoot or breathe?
Oh, no,
that's awesome.
That's mean.
And they're like,
I don't know.
But I promise you, the next 10 shots, they're thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm out on that. That's hilarious.
It's you brought up earlier about and I want to swing back on this. Driving your car, how we've all driven cars for years now, right? And through that process, you're subconsciously trained, like your brain keeps the car in the middle of the road. You never think about, I got to move my hand left, right, whatever, my knee, however you drive. I wouldn't do that, but it is what it is. Sometimes you got to do other stuff, like eat your burritos from your gas station on the way to work.
Right. Dude.
The repetition. Go ahead.
What you're saying is 100% on point, right? We all know that, but what we forget is that when we first started driving, we actually did say, "Oh crap, keep in the middle."
Right.
For whatever reason, I remember when my dad first taught me how to drive, when he turned the radio on, I couldn't see anymore. You know what I mean? Because my brain couldn't process all that. So I'm like, turn the radio. And he's like, what's that got to do with anything? He's like, I can't concentrate, right? But after repetition, right, now we drive with our knee, supposedly text and drive. I don't know. But
I still have to turn the radio down when I'm turning left. So
we can do all kinds of things, but we've got so much repetition of driving that we don't think about it. Shooting is the same. You shoot so much, you don't have to aim no more. It just goes there and floats in the middle. You know what I'm saying? And you can please shoot the shot.
But when a cop's behind you, it's impossible to keep your car between the mustard and the mayo.
That's right.
Because you're thinking about it.
You know why? Because you're uncomfortable.
You're right.
I guess.
Or drunk, one or the other.
That's great. Or you're afraid you can get pulled over because you're drunk.
Yeah. Don't. We at Craving Wild do not condone drinking and driving. Do not do that. Yeah. It's funny how that works, right? Like, even if you did nothing wrong and a cop pulls behind you, you're 10 and 2 in it. Like, you're squeezing that steering wheel and you cannot keep it between those lines. Or at least you feel like you're not, because you're just overthinking everything.
Yeah, that's a great example of what happens in archery when you're in the backyard by yourself, but your wife comes out to watch you shoot, and all of a sudden you're gripping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Exactly. Control your brain. That's key.
Yeah, I think that
it's simple, but it's hard to do.
Yeah, that's the name of the game, right? If everybody could do it, we'd all be shooting perfect scores.
Right, and those guys that shoot perfect scores, they're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, anybody listening to this can take their bow, strap into a hooter shooter, and it's going to shoot a perfect score every time.
Out of tune.
Right.
Nathan Brooks. Since I've been out of the military, archery has changed a lot, and I got to give a lot of credit to Nathan for kind of catching me up. But he told me that, he intentionally put a bow way out of tune and shot it through the hooter shooter, and it shoot the same hole over and over and over.
Right.
So it ain't equipment, it's us, right? Tuning your bow makes it a little more forgiving if we torque it or creep or have a bad shot, more pressure or whatever.
Right.
Shoot your bow.
Just for the listeners.
Just shoot your bow.
Yeah, once again. Just for listeners, do you want to talk about your career in archery before your career in the military? Like what you accomplished, what you did?
Oh, boy. I guess so. I hate talking about this stuff, but I just like to nerd out. I don't like talking about me. It makes me uncomfortable. But
right, that's the process here, buddy.
Yeah, you gotta get comfortable.
I was, I started shooting a bow when I was real young. I mean, I can remember being 5-6 year old and following my dad around the recurve, shooting at nothing. But by the time I was 9-10, I started hunting with my dad, and my dad hunted deer like humans. I mean, I'm talking low crawling through the woods. I mean, it was intense. We would hunt all night knowing we couldn't kill anything past dark, but we just going to see where the deers go.
Shit.
I mean, crazy stuff. But anyhow, he was real intense. And for a 10, 11-year-old kid, there's 9,000 other things I'd rather do. But I love shooting my bow, so he decided to take me to a local indoor tournament one time. And, there was 4 or 5 kids in my age group at the time. And, I won. So I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, who don't like winning? So I got a little confidence from that. And so I decided that I like target archery better than hunting. We still hunted all the time, but I didn't hunt quite as much as him. So we started traveling to tournaments as our thing. And over the years, I've won 2 national championships. I placed second in IBO World tournament in '93. Nathan Brooks, that's where I met Nathan, was back in 1993. We shot together in that tournament. I was on the Junior World Archery team in high school. And when I was 18, you got to start working to make money, and I didn't really enjoy working. So my dad was like, you need to join the military, kind of serve your country a little bit, get your life together. So I did. And at that point, I laid the bow down and stopped shooting altogether. And this is in 1996. So I've had some success as a teenager. I've been in the tournament scene. I was on the World Archery team as a teen. Pretty good success, and got a taste of that, and laid the bow down and served my country for 24 years. And now I'm retired Army, and my plan is to pick up right where I left off. Now, I am way behind the power curve, right? So I have some catching up to do. But I believe in myself. I believe in my abilities. I believe in my mental game, and I have a 3-year plan. I plan to podium in my first professional shoot within the next 3 years. So we'll see how that goes. I've my YouTube channel that kind of follows along with my journey drops tomorrow. So I'm kind of doing it backwards. Most people have success and then tell their backstory. I'm kind of doing the opposite. I'm kind of let it be known right now that I'm coming, and get ready.
Absolutely, man. For the people listening in podcast land, his stuff dropped yesterday. That's just kind of how this weird podcasting shit works. You have to record stuff before you put it out. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody, where they can find this? You just gave your plan, but what they can expect to see on your socials here.
Well, Instagram, Facebook is On The Shot. That's my handles on there, and that's just your normal stuff on there. But the YouTube channel is going to be a little different. It's I guess it's a vlog. I don't even know what to call it, but it's a journey following along my professional career, from basically ground zero, from start, retiring from the military, to in the future of winning my first tournament. So there's archery stuff on there. There's fitness stuff on there, nutrition. I'm big on that. I believe fueling your body and staying in shape is important to perform at a high level of anything. But there's also going to be some what people has called common sense. I have some strong opinions on stuff. I like to call it, my take it or leave it rants, where I drop knowledge on people, and it's a lot of information that people need to hear, but don't necessarily want to hear. So it's a lot of hard truths. So my strong opinions will be involved in that. And the first, I'd say, bulk of that YouTube is going to be episodes of who is Wes Brobeck. It's kind of my story, my struggles, my reasons, why my brain works like it does, some of the stuff I've experienced, who I am, and what I believe in. And then moving forward, there's going to be a lot of tournament footage on there, a lot of interview footage, a lot of thoughts, process, what I've screwed up and why and how I'm going to fix it. And should be good. Should be a lot of good information.
Absolutely, man. I know I'm personally looking forward to it. I want to, thank you for taking the time to come on here. It's New Year's Eve. We have, families want to be doing stuff, and we took the time to get this out because of your YouTube dropping tomorrow or yesterday, depending how you're listening to this. And how often are you going to be releasing episodes for the viewers?
Well, I've got big aspirations. I think weekly is the goal. So every week, a new video is going to be dropped. I'm in a position, admittedly, that's more advantageous than most archers. I'm retired Army. I'm 100% going to be a professional archer. That is going to be my profession. So I have all day, every day, that most people would work a 9 to 5. My job will be archery. So with that, I also have time to make these videos and put out new videos on the tubes. And the plan is weekly, dropping new episodes.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
That's a ton of work.
It is. Trust me. I've been trying to get ahead. I was advised early, if you're going to do this, you need to have a few in the queue in case it happens, so you can drop them. So I'm
always
trying
be
to
ahead.
get it.
Yeah, that's one thing we learned here too.
Always be ahead.
Always.
Yeah, it's not easy, and for those, vloggers, and for guys like you that do this, for people listening that don't know, it is a lot of work. And I do appreciate you guys taking the time to have me. I enjoyed it. I love talking about this stuff. I could talk about this for days, but thank you. And I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. We'll have you back to be more nerdy out just on bows, because tuning the bows, it's coming up soon now that everybody's done hunting. So
Right.
Absolutely. And to throw you a challenge, we just recorded a 4-hour podcast. So you think you can go 5 hours and set the record?
Oh shit.
Bro, I honestly have no problem. I could probably just, as long as I got a coffee maker out here, I can go for days.
Yeah. We're good until this bottle's empty. You see here on the table.
I'm very passionate about this sport. It's been in my blood, just shooting in general. I'm very passionate about it. I love it. I love the people in it, like yourself. You guys are archers. I mean, have you ever really met an archer that you didn't like? Most of them's real, down to earth guys, blue collar, give you the shirt off their back type people.
Well, do we consider crossbows as archers? Sorry, just kidding.
Do not.
No, we do not.
We
Okay,
do not.
all right. Yeah, no, they're all great. Everyone's great.
Yeah. They need to take bow out of crossbow.
That's hilarious.
First, thanks for taking a step back and going through your history there a little bit. I just wanted to solidify that you're not just some random guy who watched, a couple hours of YouTube videos and turned around and just regurgitated information, which is what.
Yeah, it happens a lot, and I'm in a weird situation. I mean, I acknowledge it, and I've discussed it with several people. Is it too weird or is it interesting? But for some reason, I'm really drawn to do this. I have a strong faith. I believe in God. I'm a Christian, and all that stuff. And I'm really drawn to do this. And I'm hoping that through this, I could also, spread the word of God a little bit. And this world is in a bad place right now. And I think the world needs more God. But that's also part of my stance. I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Absolutely, man. I think it's important to be original and stick to core values, regardless of what that is. It doesn't matter, right? Stick to it. Right. Be yourself. Don't keep following this. And you get on Instagram, and that's exactly what it is, right? Just chasing the what's cool now shit. Right. And that's like the main thing that we wanted to do is get away from that. Just be us. When we first started doing this podcast, we had a very quick why in the road. Do we just be us and curse and say dumb shit and make fun of each other,
be genuine,
or do we go the route to the right and be very prim, proper, very educational, what everybody wants to see, all that stuff? And obviously we went potentially the wrong way.
The dark, lonely road.
There's fake stuff out there, man, and when you run across it, it's super obvious.
Yeah, it's awkward. It's even more awkward when you meet those people in person.
Right.
And I'm sure you're going to start rubbing elbows with those people, the YouTube professional archers.
Yeah, I've already had that situation a couple times, right? I've had a couple people say, "Hey, I talked to so-and-so, like very in the upper levels of the whole hunting podcast deal. You need to give them a call, and they want to talk to you or whatever." And then I'll call them, and they don't answer. So I'll text them, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm doing this right here. Yeah, let me give you a call back," and never hear from them again. So it's telling. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There's genuine people that want to get good information out there, and then there's other people that's like, how does it benefit me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When's your next? Well, not next. When's your? I guess it would be still next. Your first tournament coming up this year.
I shot 2 tournaments last year in the ASA realm, right? Epic fails, but that was getting my feet wet. This year, I'm shooting semi-pro in ASA, so I can't shoot professional in any indoor tournaments, because once you shoot professional in one event, then you're a pro archer at that point. So I'm shooting in the amateur class in the Lancaster Classic here in January. I will shoot the state indoor stuff for NFAA here locally. I don't have the funding or the clout to go to Vegas, so I won't be going to that this year. And I'll be shooting semi-pro in all the ASA tournaments. And next year, so 2025, I plan on going pro. I also plan on struggling, right? Just because you go pro don't mean you can handle it. But in my mind, just like we talked about at the beginning of this with the mental toughness and putting yourself in uncomfortable positions, the more I shoot side by side with Dan McCarthy and Levi Morgan, the more experience I get, the more comfortable I get in the situation, and the better it makes me as not only an archer, but a competitor in general.
Absolutely. Is there any or what's the thought process, I should say, if you start shooting in the first couple of months here, semi-pro, and you're just waxing guys, right? Are you going to move up right away, or are you going to force yourself to shoot semi for a year?
I have a plan of shoot semi all year. I believe I wanted to shoot, just to be transparent, I was going to go pro this year. Mm-hmm. But let's be honest. I mean, entry fees kind of get up there.
It's a big difference.
Yeah, and when you don't have any kind of sponsorship or any kind of backing to help you out, I mean, that's tough, right? So this year, the only reason I'm shooting semi-pro, well, there's 2 reasons. One is I don't have the income to fund 10 tournaments with travel, lodging, food, entry fees in the pro category, knowing you're going to struggle the first couple of years. And I think 1 year in semi-pro, because trust me when I tell you, them bros in semi-pro are not slouches, right? So it's the same speed rating in ASA and the same distance as the pros for semi-pro. So for those 2 reasons, I'm going to stick in semi-pro all year, get that experience, save up some funds, and then jump in with both feet in 2025.
Sounds like a plan to me, man.
Yes, sir.
And to boot on that, to the listeners, the more shirts you buy from us would allow us to sponsor Wes.
Hey,
to get into more shoots. So it's do this for Wes.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, you're helping.
We're going to
a
make
veteran,
a shirt that says "Do it for Wes."
Yes,
you are helping a veteran, so yeah, you should do it.
Even that alone, you should do it.
But yeah, I'm toying, and I'll I'm going to need to get with you after this, but I'm toying with the idea of some merch, for my YouTube deal with some T-shirts and stuff. And you guys already have some of that going, so
yeah,
I might get ice from you guys.
Big word of advice: if you do merch, sell it. Don't give it away.
Noted.
Yeah, it works out a lot better. And just because it's your cousin or your mom doesn't matter. It's $30.
That's right.
No, yeah. My phone's always on. You can call me whenever, man. And I know we've talked about this in the past, but I know we plan on definitely getting you on more. And we should, like Antonio said, we should definitely maybe come up with some sort of maybe something might come out of this a little better. I don't want to say too much on here. We should definitely talk after this and see what we can do, because I want to tap into that brain, that big old brain of yours, and let that flow out to the people.
Yeah, I'm self-admittedly unique, right? I'm so unique that it's hard for me to have friends, because I expect so much out of myself that if a buddy says, "Hey, let's go hunting tomorrow, I'll meet you at 5 a.m. at the gas station," when he shows up at 5:15, I'm mad. You know what I mean? So that drive for perfection in my brain is super unique, and it's almost scary. You probably don't even want to be in my brain. You want to talk about obsessive? It's next level.
Well, I'm sure that'll come out in your YouTube vlogs. And
I hope it does, bud. I hope it does. I really hope things I say reach the right people, because people need to hear the truth. We live in a world where people want to walk around on eggshells all the time. And I mean, we've had soldiers die, right? Lose their lives for the freedom of speech. But yet we don't want to say what our opinion is because we might want to hurt somebody. Just because we have different opinions don't mean we can't get along. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
right.
That is true.
You want to hurt a lot. Who's your college football team? Do you watch
I'm the
football?
only one. The Tennessee Vols, baby.
See, that's what I mean. Yeah. You know what that orange is for, right? Well, what's that saying? Hold on. Hold on. I got to think about it. Something about that orange.
Don't mess up.
Well, we're not in the SEC, so it really doesn't matter. We're in Big Ten country for whatever that's worth. They didn't really show up too well the last couple of days in bowl games, but Ohio State. They wear that orange on, was it Saturdays? So you can go hunting. I forget what Sundays is, and then Monday is so that they can deliver garbage or pick up garbage. That's why Tennessee Volunteers wear fluorescent orange.
I'm telling you, it is a tough road being a Vols fan. It's been a lot of years since we had some good football players.
So we're going to be enemies here. I'm a Longhorn fan, and we're coming to the SEC next year.
Coming on over. At least you got a little close to the right color.
Yeah. We're just a little dirtier. That's all. A little dirtier. We're left in the smoker a little longer.
Yeah.
And unfortunately,
everybody wants to get in the SEC. That's the place to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, we're bringing dirty Oklahoma with us. I kind of wish we would have left them in the dump, but
yeah,
it is what it is. They'll hurt themselves anyway. That's usually what they're good for.
Right.
But anyway,
football's some definite. We don't have to agree, but we can be friends.
Right. That's what I was getting at. That was the whole fucking thing of that spiel was that you can really hurt each other's feelings talking about football, but at the end of the day, it don't matter.
Right. Don't matter. Texas is number one.
All right, man. Wes, do you have you got anything you want to say, or you covered your socials? Do you, if you want to, again at the end of the episode here, the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, I just I'm humbled to be on here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you guys, and thank you for listening to me ramble about all these crazy ideas I got and stuff. And it's good to be here. I'm looking forward to the next one. I hope you got more time next time. I mean, I can do this for days.
Oh yeah, we'll schedule her out.
You let us know.
I love it.
All right, buddy. You guys know what to do.
Yo, nice meeting you. Good luck.
Yeah, good meeting you guys.
I just skipped all you guys.
That's all right.
That was an asshole move.
It's not that we're not going to talk about him as soon as you cut this.
I really got to pee.
So do I.
I'll talk to you while the two girls pee. Go ahead.
What did you? Oh, did you? Okay.